Hello, world. Frida, Reba, Darcy, and Patricia O'Connor here. It is too nice a day. It is too nice a day. I've got a tree on the bench. I think that's for tonight. We'll do our Saturday night. We'll do our Saturday night in Alameda Bonsai tonight, probably with a tree that I have sitting on the bench. There, you heard it here first. It's too nice a day to be inside. I have to come out. There is a small party going on at the pool. It looks like a family gathering. I'm not going to hone in on their thing or spy on their thing, but it looks like a nice family having a nice weekend. And I live vicariously through other people's families. It's nice. It's nice to be able to see them and hear them enjoying all of that. I think there's probably something therapeutic about that. But then I don't have to have drunken family members rolling down my steps during the holidays. So it's kind of like I get to pick and choose what of the family experience I would like to have, and then live vicariously through other people's families. TMI, Pat. These are all our ponderosas, and today I'm going to talk about my growth habits, things that I'm learning along the way. Quite a few things I've learned by reading. Quite a few things I've learned from y'all sending me tips and help and telling me not to do stuff that I shouldn't be doing. Sometimes that's pretty helpful. And quite a bit I've learned from YouTube videos. And quite a bit, and some I've learned from trial and error. Although we're just about, according to my histories in YouTube and Facebook and stuff, we're completing 3 years of these guys. Not going on 4. We're going on 4 as of September. September 3 years ago was when I started this. It seems longer, but that's pretty good actually. That's a lot has happened in that 3 years. I guess that's why I thought it was 4. Those guys have come a long way. And when I started with these guys, I started treating them a whole lot different than the way I'm treating them now. By that I mean that I would let them grow out every spring and then manicure them to where I thought they look like finished trees. Whereas right now I'm letting them overgrow, and it's almost like saying, well, no, those look great. They do look great, but if I were to go through and do them like they were, formal uprights, you would be able to kind of like see the bonsai they're about to be, and that would also come at the expense of how long it would take them to actually get there. So, we've learned about that. We learned better than that. And then over time, I've learned a few things about wiring. I've learned about mistakes in wiring. I want to recap this. I was just telling somebody who I was talking to this morning that was sending me an email about work and pottery and artist stuff. And I cannot say enough that I think this tree here, this little ponderosa, it came out well. I think the bins that we put in this tree also came out well. I would have to say the tree did better than I did, because, and I was showing this earlier, that wrap right there should have come this way right at the apex of that bend, and then the next one would have been there, and then the next one would have been there, and that would have formed support. The same deal here. The wire should have come around here and just absolutely where the main part of the bend is what I call the apex of the bend. In racing, you would call that the apex of the turn. There should have been the wire going there. And I was even saying, like, if you have a tree and you're looking at it and before you put wire to it, you think, oh yeah, this has got a feature like X and I'm going to want to definitely put some motion in that. Then when you're wrapping that wire on that, keep an eye on that spot, because if you're going to put a hellacious amount of curve there, then you need a hellacious amount of wire there. Hellacious being, you need the proper amount of wire there, I should say. But you need to make sure you hit your point. I didn't, and we got away with it. And so I think the bin was good. I think the tree looks good. I think the motion we put in it looks good. I think the wire that we put in it held. I think I could have done a better job of wiring that tree. And other than that, the cracks look like about the kind of cracks that I would be looking at if I were putting a bend in something and I wanted to bend it more or less or something. I'd kind of be watching that. And that would be, it did kind of like what you would do if I wanted to have bent that more in there, for instance. I could have. That mark doesn't say quit. Just like these marks here don't say quit. So, yeah, we well and truly got away with it, but I want to point that out, that getting lucky is not the same as being good. In here, I got lucky. Just so you know, I don't want to do something and have it come out okay, but really have it be kind of so-so and then just act like it's all fine and Jake. What I would have liked to have been a better teacher there. Okay, I can move on from that. What other mistakes have I made? Well, in the early going, I looked at this Ponderosa. Let's look here. We got needles that are looking really shabby all of a sudden here on this Ponderosa. Is there anything wrong? Is there anything bad wrong? I don't think so. I think this is the time of year for Ponderosa needles to start looking a little long in the tooth. We're probably going to start passing along, getting rid of some of the third-year needles. Some of the second-year needles, their defenses are going to start running. They're going to get a little old in the tooth. And some of the things that we did to them before, that they kind of shrugged off so that they could still be all fine and pretty, they're going to start showing signs of all those little crimps and all those little things. And all these little crimps and all these little things we see and all these tips tell me that I'm injuring this tree. Probably when I had it over here somewhere, moving into it, the way Frankenpine is in danger of me moving into it. So you bend the needles, and at first you may not see it, but it shows up where you continually bend the needles, and it causes problems. And you can tell when trees are in a good spot and not always doing that, and trees that are in a precarious spot and are always, they're not in the way. This is their spot. I go in and try to water, and I'm making things tight on myself. Then, yeah, Pat, you got too many trees. No, the hell with that. Like, I do not have too many trees. We have room for more trees. We have spaces we're not using for trees. Here lately, I've been repotting a lot. When I repotted this tree at this angle. I love this angle. I was able to put some of these branches are all short but still malleable, and I was able to put a little curly Q in some of them that are windswept. Downside, plus side, I had a little bit of reverse taper here where the tree originally was probably at this angle. This is probably, it looked to me like this may have been its original angle, because when I got it, it was straight up like this, and when I laid it down, all of a sudden I could see how the indentions in the trunk and the little bit of taper problem I was having right here exactly lined up with how it was laying, if it was laying on its belly right there. So I think that's probably the original location. It lent itself well. We kind of went from a upright literati to a windswept tree with all of its branches blowing that way. Really pretty. It takes up, this is a show hen now. This isn't a big, huge honking tree. I mean, really, there's my finger for scale. So this is a small tree, but it takes up 3 trees worth of space. I'm not lying. Do I like this shape? Yeah, a lot. Really, I do. It's a little hard for me to maintain here because it's always seemingly in the way, because it takes up, if it were fit even a little bit within the contains of its pot, There could be another tree here. There could be another tree there. The same with that one. I'm responsible. I did that. I did that angle and I like it. I did that angle and I like it. I like it better than the way it was before. I don't like how much space it takes up. So I'm at odds. No, I'm not about to do anything. But this is me talking a little bit about, you do something. I got really excited. When I put the tree at this angle, I saw it instantly and went, ooh, this is going to be cool. I remember doing that. We could go back and find that. Go back and find that in our Ponderosa file. But it does. It takes up 3 trees worth of room, and I probably need to amend where it is, or I'll continue to see little damage like this throughout. We're pushing out new growth. There's nothing wrong with the tree, but it's a location. It's a location issue, and it's a work in progress. My other little Ponderosa behind it has the same issue. It seems to be doing better. It seems to have less damage. I'll say that. They're both doing fine. Let's see what else. Along that same token, now I'm coming back around to late acquisition. Too big. I mean, it's going to have, it looks really good right now, but we're going to see the same kind of needle damage to this guy because it's perimeters. The pot's way back here, and I've got tree all the way out to here. Early on, I had an opportunity to buy a really pretty Ponderosa Cascade, and then I was very much aware of my space, and I went, no, I don't need a Cascade. It wasn't a small tree; it was a large Cascade. It would have gone over the rail a couple of feet down. So, and I had enough sense at that time to go, no, you don't have room for something that's gonna exceed its pot dimensions by that much. Which Cascades don't necessarily, as long as you've got a little bit of room in a circle for it to hang down in, you're not exceeding your space maybe by that much. But at the same time, this is another tree that's really, really, really sprawled out, and this is cork bark. I kind of don't want to do anything to there, but like heck, I also am thinking. So I've already put some wire on here and was going to put some motion in that. I had suffered some crackage there. I think my odds of being able to bend this are pretty slim. I think even if I bend it, it needs to go that way a bunch to not just take up the whole dang bench. So what I'll probably do is, this will be an off-camera thing. I'm not going to snap that on camera, because actually I would rather have that as a gin than a failed. I could say, well, try to bend it. If it doesn't bend and it doesn't go well, then you snapped it instead of cutting it. But that would actually make a sort of cool gin out to here if I left some of that bark on it. But I'm thinking this is too long, and we're probably going to chop this back. That has nothing to do with success or failure on how this is wired to trees. This end of the tree is fine. When I was thinking about keeping it is when I thought that I was going to keep it originally, I'd already gotten so far to loosely get some copper on here. I put a crack here and bailed out. I went, stop, let everything recover, and then we'll come back to them. That's why my wire is kind of resting there. I was also going to make a decision over which one of those 3 to keep, and it was probably going to be, which one of those 2 to keep, and it was probably going to be lose this one, but I hadn't gotten that far yet. Also, to have bent this around would have made that a lot more desirable. I don't see that doing that. I see shutting the tree down about here and getting rid of this much space, dead space, and maybe just turn this whole thing into a gin right here. That's probably where we would go. That nice little curve, and then just do that and let this gin. That's kind of what's going on there. I would say that I'm a big sucker for windswept designs. They are space wasteful, and I don't have, it's not like I can make a little pedestal and part of my, make a monkey pole off by itself and just put this thing on it and let it bask in the sunshine. I have restrictions. We are kind of packed in here. And the main thing, I don't worry so much about it looking like the Zen bonsai garden display as much as I want to make sure everybody has enough room to thrive without doing harm to the ones next to them. That's kind of my idea there. If I can do things to make this more aesthetically pleasing and not just look like an over full packed in, then okay, that's good too. But at the end of the day, I want good, healthy trees. If just coming out here and looking at my cypress trees, that's very much therapy for me. And when things are going well and looking well, that's very much therapy for me too. It's very even. There are a lot of things that when things are going bad, you worry, and when things are going good, you don't even think about it. You know. But I really appreciate the look of my Japanese corkbark black pine right now. I really appreciate my little 17-year from seed, probably now going on 19-year from seed black pine. I just did a needle reduction and got its candles cut. I really appreciate the work that I've been doing and what I've learned about bending and folding and where we've gotten so far on this really large ponderosa. Was noticing earlier this gin here. A couple of things about it. It kind of abruptly stops with the bark. It might be cool to take the top and expose. Let's see if I can get my finger in there. Exposed back to here somewhere. I don't know. Expose the bark back to there and let that bleach out. But also, can you see how butterscotchy that looks? Like a piece of hard candy. It's glossy and shiny with resin. That's just, that's what our tree made here, and it just almost looks like fiberglass resin or something. I bet it smells like butterscotch. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. We're really enjoying our Saturday. I just thought that I would do a little backup look at some of the things we've been doing. Oh yeah, one other thing while we're talking. So that's how Frankenpine came out. I'm pretty happy with it. All of our bins stayed. I'm glad we released all of these little creases that we have in here where we're looking at the wire marks. I'm going to throw zip ties in that in a few days and pull these closer together and this closer to this. In other words, I'm going to put our restraints back on the trunks in 2 key locations to tighten it back up again for another year. After we give it a minute, like a couple of days or so to breathe, and we're just going to cinch it all back up again. This time I'm going to go with something a little wider, like zip ties, and avoid those areas so we can let those recover. So that's what's going on there. And I was asked by one of our regular viewers, somebody I see a lot. In fact, they asked me twice about this, and they asked in the chat comment, but the video was rolling up when we just got rolling about it. They were asking me about what I expect the eventual outcome of these little bins, like on this little cascade. They're asking me, won't that eventually just become, things when all that closes up? It's not going to look like anything. And to that end, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're experimenting to see what's going to happen. The question is, will that look like a canyon tree, or is that going to look like a blob of wood in a couple of years? I think we'll be able to discern whenever it finally starts to bark over and stuff. I think we'll be able to pick out the directions in this tree, in the details, that even if it starts to overlap and starts to mend in, it's going to look like a canyon tree. It's going to look like something with bends and folds and shapes and turns. Now, just recently on another social media page, I saw a tree that was on display, and it was getting a great deal of interest. It was a Japanese black pine. It was a show hen. It was probably a couple of years old. It came out of the ground kind of like my Literati here, not much of an angle, and it got right about here where this bend is, and it had one circle bend, just one circle, and it had grown to the point to where the negative space in the center had disappeared. There was no, all of that had completely closed up, and now we're just looking at the outside of a circle. So it came almost straight up, had a circle, and then went almost straight up from there, and had a plume. It almost looked like a trumpet or a horn that had one twist in the middle that went 360 degrees and then went right straight up, except then that closed up. And if that is what they were referring to, if something like that is what they're referring to, that would be an issue. There were times when I had bent trees like this and watched the straight up part start to accelerate and go right on up, and I'm like, hold the phone, we need to do something with this. This isn't gonna be allowed to go straight. I'm just giving it a minute to harden off before I bring this back piece around. So what I'm saying there is if you put curves and spirals in a tree like it's a canyon, you have to be consistent with that. If it then goes perfectly straight and looks like it was, the top third of it looks like it was grown in a nursery, yeah, that will look odd. But even if the circles close up with time, I think that we'll still be able to see that the grain is running in the direction that the tree was running when it gets old enough to have grain. And by 10 years from now is when it would be old enough to have bark. And I said grain when I meant bark. In 10 years, when it's old enough to have bark, we'll be able to see the directions that bark is running, and that bark is going to run in the same direction that the grain underneath the bark was originally running, and that will be as per our beds. So even as that stuff closes up, I do think that our impression will be with these guys that they are twisted and have a lot of shape to them. And no, I'm not gonna let the tops just then, come on, Pat, grow straight up and do something to kill that image. I'll always try to keep the top of the tree, the apex of the tree, close to where the action is to keep that full impression going of age and twist and folds and hardship and all that good stuff. All right. So with that, I think I've covered us up to present. We're going to continue with our bend and fold Cheerios style of growing. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great weekend.